Today I'm going to be working on this tow unit that I told you a friend of mine built, and I'm not real happy with a lot of the things on it. We're going to be making a lot of changes to it. This, I did a video on, and I wasn't real happy with it. There's a lot of things about it that didn't work. I wasn't happy with, for one, these are a problem. I tried to use it on a different truck. The fifth wheel kingpin release handle was right there in the way. These I need to cut off, and instead of being down below this bar, they need to be up above with a brace this way so that they're not bending like it did. That really probably should have been C-channel. That'd have been a lot better if that was C-channel. It would have gave you something, you know, to come in this way upwards, you know, and give you something to hold it on the sides so it didn't bend. But we're going to try and reuse these, add a brace. This is a pain because when you're trying to hook everything up and you're going up and down with this boom, you have to get, if you need to go down, well, first off, in order to go up, you have to get in the truck, apply air pressure, okay, to the emergency brakes, the air tank. So you apply pressure, and then to lift those, you move this valve, which, as you can see, is far away from the business end of this deal here. So imagine your tires are right here, so you're reaching like this, and I'm stretching to get to it because I'm a short guy. So this valving being here would be okay as a secondary hold, so you don't lose any air. But as far as what happens is if you don't get it set just right and you have to take this back down because you know you want to go higher or whatever, something's not right, you have to get back in the truck, pull the air valve to shut the air off, open this up, release the air, wait for this to come down. Once it's down, hook this back up, close the valve, get back in the truck, apply the air, and if you don't get it right the second time, you do that whole ordeal again. So it's not, and I'm not that good with it, so it usually takes me 2 or 3 times before I can get the tow unit the way I want it. So what we're going to do is move the valving. We're going to leave that valving there. We're going to tee into here. Actually, we're not going to tee. We're going to cut that loose. We're going to cut it loose, and we're going to bring a valve over here that will supply air to the bags, and then after that, we'll have a valve teed in that will have an exhaust, so we can open it and exhaust it back here, because this is the business end. You know, your rear tires are curving right about into this area here. So this is a whole lot easier to work with, okay? This is all scratched up because this thing slid because these broke loose. These weren't good welds. You can see there, that's just laying on top of the metal. It never actually melted anything. And it's the same thing there. There's no penetration here at all on that metal. So we're going to be changing this. We're going to cut these out. We're going to grind all that back out. We're going to repair that. We're going to be taking these brackets off, and we're going to be redoing how this plate is lifted. I don't know if you're familiar. Let me get this set up the way it used to be so I can show you what it is. This is how it used to be. This big 1/2-inch slip hook would hook into that hole, and the chain came up and went around this here, and then all it was a bolt coming through here, and I'm just not happy with that. I think the way it was done, there's too much room in there for a bolt to bend. You know, I'd prefer it be supported. There's just too much in there not supported for a 5/8 bolt, and you're limited because you're only as good as your weakest link. So you can have grade 70 all the way up here. You put a 5/8 bolt in it, and your grade 70 1/2-inch just turned into whatever that 5/8 bolt is good for. So this worked okay for him, but like I said, we're going to change it. So now we'll go back the other way. So what I'm going to do now is use this 1/2-inch chain and make a bridle to where it goes to one side and goes to the other side, and attach it right now with these 1/2-inch grade 70 shackles. Of course, they're made in China. But they've got a 9/16 pin here, and they rate this thing for a working load of 11,300, which is the same thing as this chain. Right now I have it sitting on this grade 70 hook up inside here, which since I'm using that one link, I'm not doubling the capacity because I'm still on 11,300. If I take and cut this loose and make 2 change, which is my intention, and put a couple omega rings in here with roll pins around this 1 inch, I think this is 1.5 inch bar here. I'm gonna put it in here, 2 omega rings, because they're closed. They're not open like this one. This one can't come out. The only way I can get this in here was to pull this pin out. But we're gonna put 2 omega rings in here. We're gonna cut the bottom of the steel off here so it can hang straight and move without hitting steel. And then we're probably gonna add some plating up in here and maybe even cap this off for some more strength, because this is C-channel welded together. I would have used heavy box, but to each their own. Everybody's got a better idea, I guess. Everybody's got their own idea of what is better. I guess it's a better way to say that. So then what we're gonna do is take these, you can see where I got my holes marked out. I'm gonna put these in the plate like that, and then put the other one over here where it's marked out. That is right now because I need this thing to move a truck that is gonna be a great build, I hope. The one thing I didn't like about how this worked was you had that one slip hook in that hole, and it let the plate do this. You know, and when you went into a turn or a dip, it allowed the one side to dip as far as it wanted to go. So sometimes you would get the tire, you go into a dip and the tires on the truck would dip and they'd skip and it would drag the tire, and I don't want to do that. So this should, by going to the corners, it should help limit how far it can go each way. And then, like I said, we're gonna change this out, and it'll be kind of the same deal. We'll put an omega ring in here. We will add another piece of plate in the middle to strengthen this. And there's a seam right here where the C-channel is. So we'll weld it on either side of that to help strengthen that. So that should take care of that. As far as this contraption here, the geometry works correctly because the plate that goes against the vehicle sits out so much farther than the boom. And that's the way it should be, because you don't want the boom hitting the grill. So it should come out kind of at an angle, a slight angle this way, and the plate stands up like this. The other problem was with the single attachment point, the tendency for this thing to, let's see, how was that? Always lean back this way or lean back this way. It never really sat plumb when you went to hook up, and that was a problem. I don't know if that's going to fix it or not, but we're going to look at it. Another thing we're going to fix, as you can see, that's kind of a torched off end there. That's kind of a torched off round. That's straight. We're going to make those both even. But you can see what I'm talking about. I mean, the quality of these welds, they're just so inconsistent. Like this one actually melted slightly into this plate, but nothing into here. I mean, we don't have very good penetration. Eventually, I'm going to build this same unit, but electric over hydraulic. And at least by using this and making it work, I know what not to do. I'm learning the things that don't work well with this, so we can get it better. Like, I'm not going to use 3 pieces of C-channel here. I'm going to have 1 piece of steel, 1/2 inch plate made, and then have it turn up for strength. And then we'll have a place for our rams, because we're not going to have airbags. So I'll be able to, I don't know what you want to call it, but change the design to work better, knowing what, again, doesn't work well with this. But anyways, so next thing I need to do is start getting this cut off. So I got it sitting here plumb. You see how the plate is plumb here, and you see what a steep angle those chains are at. That's more than I want, okay? And we're not high enough. This bar, when I'm towing and lifting, you see the boom is maxed out here. My airbags are maxed out, it's up on the top. And in order to tow, you put your pin in here and you're gonna rest this against the pin. So we're gonna come down a good, probably on this side, what is that? Probably 2 inches. So we're gonna come down 2 inches lower, which means that pivot right there, which pivots this way and this way, it's gonna be 2 inches lower. we want, when we're towing, the frame of the unit to be parallel straight out. So there's several ways to achieve this. One is going to be to shorten that chain. Another is going to be somehow lower that connection point. I can't do that because I need that to be up on top so it's out of the way. The other is to reduce this length by changing our connection point from here to down lower. So I think that's what we're going to do next. If I change it down lower, I can effectively reduce this angle also, because if I come on the inside, it's going to come in here. Because here's the thing, look at this. You see how this is going to come over this way, and see how it's pulling. You're putting a lot of force on this way. I don't want to take the risk of we're going to break this knuckle here, this shackle, because we're pulling all that force on one side instead of it being even on that pin. Another point I need to make is when I take that chain and I stick it back here, the way I'm going to do this is automatically going to move that chain back and stick the plate out past where this is hanging, at least by a couple inches. Now I can shove it back as far as I think I need, so as long as it doesn't interfere with that bar when we're turning, which we're not going to turn that sharp. But that automatically will move my chains back behind. See, this is not good here either, because if it's a tall bumper and we go to lift it, we could hit the front of the truck with this. But again, the way it was with that hook in here, you can see I've only towed 2 trucks with that, and I mean, look how that's gouged that metal out. I mean, that's just unacceptable. But an Omega ring is like a clevis, only instead of having a threaded pin that goes in, it has a pin that you drive 2 roll pins to hold the pin in place. It's like a permanent, semi-permanent thing where the clevis is meant to be taken loose. And you run the pin through your chain. And it's the 1/2-inch ones are set up with a 5/8 chain, or 5/8 pin to go through the chain. This chain will take a 3/4 bolt. So when I do it down here, I'm probably going to put a 3/4 bolt through it. I mean, right here in the center of the pivot is probably the best, because that's going to lift it right where we need to, so it's not going to have a tendency to lift. If you lift at the top, it's going to pull this way. If you lift at the bottom, it's going to want to pull the bottom up. So if we pick it up in the middle of that pivot, that is where we should pick up as straight as possible. So here's what I've decided. I took a piece of 3/8 plate, connected the 2. I ground a V in here, and a V in here, and a V in here, and I double passed all of it. So then what I'm going to do is take the chain, hook it on here, and then we're going to lay a piece of C-channel over top of it so the bolt can come through, and that way we're not cinching that chain down tight so it can swivel, but the bolt can be tight. So that one's done. I've got the other one close to ready. I've been cutting off this jagged, horrible torch cuts. Just couldn't leave that. I wanted it straight, so I cut that off of there. And here, this has to come in the rest of the way, so I got some grinding to do back in this corner to get it clean. And then I'll grind this flat, and then put us a V in here and a V down in here, and then get to welding. So this is what I come up with. I plated that off and ground the 45s and all that and got it welded in. I triple passed it, so it may look a little bad or goofy or whatever, but that's because there's 3 passes on it. So I only had gray paint. I didn't have any black, so I'll have to get some, but you can see even if that was plumb, which it's really not, the boom is still back behind it, so we're good there. I like this setup here because we're pulling in the center. So when we pull in the center, it should come up, theoretically, it should come up plumb and not do all that wanky crap it was doing. So now I'm working on the front. I've cut these keyholes off the front and realized that they were this way, And if I want to use them up here, I was thinking I could just turn them over, but that obviously isn't going to work so well. So I either have to have new ones cut, or I have to put these somehow up here and then plate it right here to help stiffen it up so it won't pull either way. I'm sure before I'm done, I will probably have touched every weld on this thing or close to it. Yeah, look at that. I mean, there was absolutely no penetration there at all. That's a lot of wire and not enough heat. So I got this cut off. I just have to clean it up now, get the rest of the little schmegmar off, and get it ready to weld. But I cut this little eye ring off here, and I've been beating on this back and forth, and this one's actually welded fairly decent. It's holding good. I replaced the other, got the other one welded back in. Man, look at all this grinding crap all over. I got this one welded in. This side was a little tight back in there, but I think I was able to get a decent weld in there. I think it's going to hold. So now these, call them trailing arms, which is what keeps, when you go to lift it off the truck, it keeps the kingpin part and the lift part straight so that this part doesn't fall back. Here's what I've decided to do here. I took this, I believe this is 3/16 plate. This is probably quarter plate. And I just made a U-box out of it. I brought this leg down low so I could weld inside all the way around. And this one, I grounded the form around that box tubing so that, get my magnet out of there, so it will sit down on there, if I can get it positioned right here. Anyway, so it will sit right around there and cradle it good. You know, I have a lot of guys that ask me or that leave comments and say, you know, you talk about what you're doing, but you don't show what you're doing. I'm going to continue doing what I do. I'll show what I can when I can. It's not easy. Making a video of doing work takes a lot of extra time, and it slows down the project tremendously. You just can't imagine how much more time it takes to grab a camera and talk about what you're doing and show it. It's not easy, but I'll do it for those people who appreciate it, that's for sure. So there's what I came up with. I figured if I welded all the way around and inside, it would take an act of Congress to bend that thing. I capped that off because I was afraid of it kind of twisting, and I thought that might help. You know, based on what we have, that's okay, but I mean, afterthoughts, I thought I should have probably taken a brace this way, triangulated, and that would have made it strong, but I think that's okay for what we're achieving. So now we got to do it to this side. So let's get going. Gave it an aerosol overhaul. Got my hooks up here, welded on, waiting for the primer to dry on that one. Got this one on. Still got to finish painting, but waiting for primer to dry. We're going to paint that black now. I think what I'm going to do for right now is I'm just going to put a tack weld on this. It has a lock washer on it, but I'm going to put a tack 180 degrees from each other, put two of them, one here on each bolt, and we're going to try it before I go any farther. Now that it'll go on my Freightliner, since that crap's not there anymore, and it should sit down on the frame. So let's get to it. I was going to put drill through here and put bolts to go into them frame mounts to sandwich it between between the truck frame and this other piece of steel and just squeeze it, but I thought I better put it on the truck and use it and make sure that where I think it's going to work is truly where it's going to work. Where I was going to put it back here, I want to make sure I don't need it up here instead, so I thought I'd just wait on that. So we had to make some changes back here. This was originally a bolt with a locking nut, and this is designed to be adjustable. So if you need to bring the truck closer or farther away from the truck you're towing, away from the truck you're using to tow with, you adjust these. Well, it was peened over those triangle lock nuts, and those are designed for basically a one-time use. So what I did is I went and got grade 8 bolts. These are 1-inchers, and I created a castle nut, and then I drilled the bolt. That way we get the strength of the bolt, and then out past it we have the adjustability to tighten it up and down, and put a cotter pin here. Now we'll also run a second cotter pin on here. I'm thinking about reversing this and putting these out here so I can always see them. It's not so hidden. I can always make sure it's not backing off or anything weird. And I also have extra cotter pins in the truck, but we're going to make a way to have extra cotter pins, because if I go to adjust this, the likeliness I will lose these is pretty high. So we'll put 4 or 5 of them in on this, not in the truck, but on this unit. We're going to make this unit to where no matter what truck I put it on, everything we need is right here. So we got some other changes to make. So we're going to take it back off the truck. This is the front of the boom where the air line comes through, and there was that ball valve and then the glad hand. I just removed it because here's what I'm thinking. I have this toolbox. It's 30 inches wide, 16 tall, 16 deep, and I took this off a trailer that I had because it was mounted on the tongue. It was in a really weird place and didn't belong, so I have no money in this toolbox, which it makes me happy. But I'm thinking about mounting it to the front of this to put all my chains in, because I think that's a good fit. I think that's a good place for it. It would it definitely work better, because I could have all the chains, binders, and bungee cords and the light cord inside that box, and it would still lift okay, because on this lift hook here, you have all this mass, right? Now this mass is probably not as equal to what I'm going to put in this toolbox, but it's close enough. And when I lift it, I run one chain to this, one chain to this, and I hook this one to the top of my Bridle mast so that I can manipulate it forward and back, tilt it, that is. I hook this one just straight to the bottom of the mast. That way, if I'm out of balance, when I hook up, I always have it leaning forward, and then I can halfway, between completely level and completely plumb. So I put it in a halfway mark, so if I need to lift one end or tilt the other end, I can. But this is what I'm thinking. I think that could be a good solution, and it's up. I'd be up above the kingpin and that plate far enough that I wouldn't be in danger of hitting the fifth wheel with this when I put it on. All right, it takes me forever to get, a plan and commit to it, but and I'm using what scrap pieces I got laying around, so that kind of comes into play. All right, so I've got this set up here. This is 1/4-inch steel. What is it, 3x3, I believe, angle. All right, so it's old used stuff. I cleaned up the best I can. What I did was push that out of the way a little bit. I welded here, up here, across here, and then down the front. That is not enough to hold what I'm going to put in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to put angle iron coming up the back. It will come, basically I'll cut it so it is flat here and comes up to this point and then comes back out, so we can get this keyhole box welded to it. It's going to come up like this, and then we're going to run angle across to the other one. So this will be a full box back here, and then on the upright here, we're going to go across with strapping to here. Then we'll take plate from here to the back of this angle, and this is, I don't know, I think that's 3.5. So we'll take 3.5-inch plate it to here, and that should be enough to keep it from sagging. It's already kind of pitched up, which, man, I am plenty okay with that. I got no problem with that at all, because, you know, it'll keep, when I go to slide it in the fifth wheel, that keeps the toolbox up above the skid plate, which is great. That's kind of what we were going for here. That's why I didn't put box tubing down here and set it on it, because it'd be too low. This isn't as nice as box tubing being hidden, but this is going to work better. So like I said, we'll take angle iron up like this. We'll run strapping from here to here, just flat plate. We'll weld the two together. It'll be on the outside. And the reason it's be on the outside, because I have a 1-inch gap. This is a 30-inch box. I don't know if they make a 32, but someday I may want to put a 32 in here, and I have 32 and 3/8 of an inch in here. So I want to put my strapping on the outside just in case I want to go to a bigger box one day. So then this will be the top collar. And then, like I said, we'll come across like that. We got some plate over here. This is probably 3/16, I'm guessing. And that's what we're going to do, basically like that, and tie it all together. Or maybe like that, or whatever the case. But that's the plan, so that'll be next. All right, this is the next piece. I've cut it on an angle, or cut this section out. Here's what I'm going to attempt to do. Weld the bottom. I'm going to V this out right here so we can lay a good weld here, get all that, get it across here and across the front.
No.
What are you looking at?
I'm videoing. I'm showing them this. You do this. Because they couldn't really see before. All you see is a big flash of lights.
One little dabber down there.
Did you get up there, or you don't need to?
Yep.
Oh, it's just dirty. It's just got, okay. Because it didn't look good.
I could probably do that again to bring it up to the top. I'll go over that one.
I'm sure it's fine, but whatever.
This little dinger down here. See that little dinger?
Yeah.
Right there. Part of my tack weld.
Yeah, we don't need no dingers.
No dinger. All right, I'll lay this one again. This is the one I was worried about right here, because I put a V into it down here, and then came down, got a little gobble there, but whatever. I'm not a welder.
It's fine.
That's a quarter. That's a quarter. Gotta make the people happy.
Well, it's hard for you to video stuff and do stuff when I'm not here.
That's right.
That's pretty good, huh?
Mm-hmm. Sure beats an abrasive wheel. I got the other V. You see there's no guard on this grinder. If you need a guard on your grinder, you should do it. I've had this come back and kick me and cut me and you know, do all the horrible things that all the safety police cry about, but I'm still okay.
I've even used it without the guard.
I don't say
It's
that.
a little scary, but I have.
Well, that's spousal abuse. Anyways, if you need the grinder, the guard on your grinder, then you should use it.
Yeah, by all means.
Don't use it.
Yeah, because I mean it can do some damage if you know.
Yep. I'm gonna finish cleaning this up and weld it in place, and then we'll move over to the top brace. Kind of see where we're headed now. I got this all welded in good and strong everywhere. Now, this piece is going to go on top, and all the others I've kind of made it so it's in the same plane, but this one, because I have extra wide angle, I'm just going to overlap it just like this is, and look at all the weld surface I got here. In here, here, there. I mean, I could probably not weld this part and keep it clean, but I was thinking I'd hold it back just a little bit and then let it weld right in there, and just take a slap disc, just round that weld off nice and clean. Same thing over here, so I'll just probably hold that back just the thickness of that metal, so we cut it here. And I am within a 1/16 of each leg, from corner to corner and corner to corner, and I'm within a 1/16 this way square, and I'm within a 1/16 square this way, so I'm pretty happy. We're gonna add a piece underneath here to go from one to the other. I'm just gonna use probably this or this small C channel. It's good and thick, just a little bit of rib on it. That's about perfect, because all we're trying to do is, if I set it down and this hits, we just don't want it to shove and rip, you know, break anything loose, which I don't think it's going to, but good practice. We're just going to lay something underneath here, over to here, and we'll get it welded here on the edge. You know, it'll be all right. So that's next. Now I got to cut this and get it laid out just right. I think I'm going to cut this just short on the back too, so that I can lay this weld on the back side of here. It'd be much nicer, let's see if I can show you, if I went slightly short and then just laid my weld right in there. Of course, I'll have to round this edge off ever so slightly so we can get this to fit and lay flat, which that's not a big deal. We can handle it. That's what we're after. I have to pull it tight a little bit, but I'm gonna lay a weld right in here. Hopefully a nice one. I'll build it up just a little bit so I can round this, because I'll just take the flapper wheel to my weld. So it'll just look like a rounded piece of steel. Oh yeah, see, look here. We're gonna butt joint it. I got a little relief ground into here, and I got a ground clean here, and then you see this relief right here, that V? Between the bottom, the side, the top, and this full length, that's what's gonna stop this thing from tilting.
Okay.
Should work out, in theory. It's a hot one. Good. What do you think? Ooh, I got the bottom. Okay, that takes care of that.
Looks good to me.
Yeah, it might hold. Yeah, that'll do. Now we'll fit the other side. I've got it almost, well, it's fit, but I have to grind the V on the top of it, like I did here.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I could get down in here and get another one, but I'm pretty certain if I do, it's going to be ugly. I really can't get in there. This one is going to go here, but I got some cleaning to do. Gotta clean all that up. Alright. I think I can get in there. Alright, so I took this little piece of C-channel, and that's where my glad hand's gonna go. It's got this little pass-through deal that goes here. On this one, at least it fits. This one was a hole that was way too big and way too thin of material for my liking. So that's gonna go there. We'll put a 90 here. We'll go down in between the boom, and then we'll put a 90 to connect the airline. And now we've got, all of this is buttoned up. We got our cross brace in. We're all welded over there. We got all this, see this brace here? This is all done here. And I'm happy with that. I think that's gonna hold it good. I went over this with the flapper wheel, kind of rounded it out a little bit. There's a little bit of imperfections here, but I'm all right with that. So now, the next thing on the agenda is we have to wipe it all down, prime it, and paint it. I should probably drill the holes for the toolbox next, because we're gonna put bolts through this cross member here, through this brace and this cross member, and then back here in the back. So maybe we'll do that next. Let's put the toolbox in there, lay it out, make sure everything's what I think it is, and mark out our holes. Got my braces in. I forgot to mention that. That ought to be plenty strong. Oh, I took a flat disc on it, cleaned it all up, and then primered all the rusty metal. Yeah, got a couple runs, but I don't think it matters. Now I need to address the chains and the bolts back here. So I gotta decide. I think I'm just gonna put the bigger bolts in for right now till I use it and see how I feel about that height. So next we should be hopefully hooking it up. Oh, I still gotta hook up my air lines. I'm gonna finish painting this and put my glad hand in here, and I'm gonna bring it back here. I'm just gonna tee that shutoff valve into here for right now, so that it's a little easier to work with. I should tee in another one because I gotta go get fittings anyways. I'll probably just do that now. Nothing more boring than waiting for paint to dry. This is awful. And I ran out of paint. I didn't get it all done, but it is what it is. I'll go get another can. I gotta touch up some spots where some primer's showing through. Every time I look at this and I see some of these welds, I'm just like, I just need to build my own. But I'm sure by the time it's done, like I said before, I'll probably have touched every weld on here. I'll probably end up grinding some of this stuff out and redoing it. So now I'm gonna go run and get all my fittings, because I'm gonna go ahead and take care of this plumbing at the same time. We're gonna make it so we can stand back here and control the unit where we should be. Because getting in and out of the truck and that air pushing the air valve and pulling the air valve just gets old. So let's go get some fittings. Working on my bracket for my valves, and I made two of these. One's gonna go over here. I'll weld it to the top of this, and the valve's gonna sit between these two. I'm gonna stack them, but I need to be able to remove one side, so if I gotta replace the valve or something. So I drilled 3/8 holes here, and we're gonna drill this. I'm gonna attempt to tap it, but in order to transfer these marks, I'm using what's called a transfer punch. It's a 3/8 punch with the center in it, so when you put it in there, it centers your hole perfectly, so that you can essentially transfer your hole exactly where you want it. So now we're gonna drill these out, and we'll drill them smaller than 3/8, and then we use a tap. This is not too difficult to tap, I don't think. Just take me a little bit of time going back and forth. So let's do that next. Got my holes tapped, drilled and tapped, and this is why I really wanted to thread it, because you see the C channel, it comes in on an angle. If I put a bolt in here and tighten it down, it'll bend the bolt and break it if I go too tight. Glad hands on. This is a compression fitting. They make this that goes in a 90 with a push to connect, but I just reuse that to save a few bucks. And then I put fuel line, zip tie, big zip tie here. Another big zip tie right there, and then one on the line so it can't fall through. That'll keep it positioned so it doesn't rub. And then I just brought it, let it curve down natural in here. It comes under here, so I did the same thing. I put fuel line there, I zip tied it on each end so it can't move, so it's always there. I could have used one of these bulkhead connectors through there, but man, look how little that is. You know what a nightmare that would be to try and push that together, and you know, and these aren't cheap either. You know, that'll work just fine. Got my brackets on. I'm just painting just this little part right here, because eventually I'm probably gonna have this, after I go over all the welds, we may repaint this whole thing. I'm not a big fan of the cat yellow, but as soon as this dries, we can finish the plumbing. I drilled my holes for the toolbox to sit in here. I'm using 3/8 bolts, but I'm using 7/16 hardware, or 7/16 holes. Give me just a little room, just in case my measurements were off at all, because I am using a used toolbox after all. I mean, I already drilled the holes in there. I use a transfer punch to mark it here, but you know, you just never know. So We'll work on that as soon as the paint dries. This is my valve blocking. I just got these brackets painted. I put some never sees on here on all of them. So if it ever has to come back apart, hopefully it don't. But if it does, it'll be a little bit easier. Now I'm gonna never sees. These are grade 8 3/8, and they go down into here. I already put never sees in the threads. I tapped them out after I painted it so they're clean, so we don't have anything in there. So now I'm gonna never sees these and get them in. I gave a Toolbox an aerosol overhaul. It's got some runs in it, but you know, that's not too bad of a shine for an old beat up Toolbox. No, I didn't take the dents and scratches out. I just aerosol overhauled it. Got all my plumbing fittings complete. Everything's done. I'm happy with it. I was gonna put the longer bolts in there, but after I tightened them up, there was 3 threads sticking out, so we're good to go for now. That may still get changed later. Waiting on the Omega joints. They haven't showed up yet, but this is as far as we're gonna go on this right now. It's gonna do everything I've done. All I wanna do right now till I use it and make sure that what I've done works. Okay, first up, so the Toolbox now, the whole idea here is that we're gonna have enough storage. It didn't have chains either, so I found this chain laying around. I just separated it so we'd have something to hold it. See, the idea is to put all the chains we need, the binders, the bungee cords, and the coil of wire for the light bar inside here. It's going to be a tall order. The binders, because they're not snap binders, they're ratchet binders, they take up a good amount of room, but that's that. Now, of course, we made some changes back here. I decided to go ahead and leave that cotter pin inside, just like that. I'm happy with that, and we're going to wait and see how this works out before we do anything else. All right, so let's talk about the plumbing. I have got so much time. You wouldn't think. It looks so simple, but it took me a while to come up with the way I wanted it. So originally the way this truck works, let's recap. You'd back up to the truck. There was a ball valve here. This would be shut off. You pull the brakes for the tractor. You would apply brakes to the trailer brakes, meaning this, and this is the supply, the emergency brakes for the trailer. So you would apply air to that, and then you would back up to the truck, hook up your chains, get it where you think you want it, and then come way up here in the front where you can't see what's going on, and air up, put air to the bags. It used to come straight back and go right to the bags. It teed right there. So then if you didn't have it right, you had to run back up here, shut the valve, go in the truck, pull the air brake valve for the trailer, disconnect the glad hand, open the ball valve, wait for it to exhaust and the airbags to come down. Once it was down where you wanted, close the valve, hook up the air hand, go back in the truck, apply the air, and then do it however many times you had to. So now what it is, we back up to the truck, pull the brakes for the tractor to set the brakes, push the brakes for the trailer brakes, applies air. Air comes all the way down here into this valve. This valve's closed. We can do all we have to do here, get ready to hook up. Now we're ready to lift. We make sure this one's closed. To lift, we just turn the valve. The air comes down through here, this T, down this way, stops at this valve because it's shut off, and goes into the airbags and fills the airbags. All right, let's say I didn't do a very good job. All right, I got to reset. I don't have to touch the truck. Now what we do is I need it to come down. This ball valve is shut. This shuts the supplier off. We open this valve. The little filter right there. I don't know if you can see that. That will exhaust and deflate. Let the air pressure out and let the airbags deflate until we got it to where we want it. Close that valve. Now we're ready to go back up. Open this valve. We're ready to go. We got it right where we want it. We're happy with it. Now we're ready to set our pin. Shut off the air pressure, put our pin where we want it, let this down, open this one up, let the boom down until it touches the pin, close it off. We're done. So hopefully that's gonna solve all that issue, I hope. What I did was, like I said earlier, I drilled and tapped this, so if I ever have to replace a valve or plumbing or do anything with it, I can just take these loose. And these are all push to connect fittings, of course. Take these loose and then pull the plate off and do what we have to do. Now, the purpose for this T is I'm going to get one of those oil-filled air pressure gauges so we can see how much pressure we have on the bags to lift. I was looking around online. It looks like you can get the ones that show basically how much weight. They're actually meant to show the weight that you have on your bags for a tandem axle, so we might do that. Anyways, that's as far as we're going to go right now. I have some other changes we're going to make. We're going to do some lighting changes. We're going to have a female plug here. Cord's going to run down the boom. It's going to come back out here to another female plug. We're going to store the light bar in here. We have a fair amount more to do this thing, but for right now, this is as far as I want to go. We got to go use it. I've got to go tow this truck. It's heavy. I've got to get it moved, so we're going to take it and use it and see how it works, make some more changes from there. If you guys like what we're doing, give us that thumbs up. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Leave your comments down below, guys. We'll catch you on the next one. I know it's a long one. We put up a poll on YouTube on the comments in the community section. I asked, and we knew it was going to be an hour long, if you wanted to leave it long or cut it into parts. So we left it long. Last time I looked, it was 78% said leave it long. So that's where we're at. So next time you see us with this one, you'll see putting it on the truck and using it, and then probably come back in here and saying, back to the drawing board. You just never know. All right, guys, we'll catch you on the next one.